Devil Survivor, Odin Sphere, the PS2 version, Final Fantasy, the NES titles, Dragon Warrior, the NES titles too. What? Fire Emblem, the NES and SNES titles too. Screw this. I see that you are back for more, huh? Well, here I am. 10 more JRPGs, the obscure ones, for hardcore players like you. Let's begin! Number 10. From the Abyss. This obscure action RPG on the DS is one of those quest-driven adventures in a top-down view perspective. The game lets you choose between 4 types of playable characters, but everyone can equip all sorts of weapons. Then you're taken to a long questionnaire, answering random stuff like in really old-school RPGs. In the end, it is to determine the status your character will have. Now, I mentioned weapons before, right? These are very important considering the insane amount of HP most enemies have. At first glance, it looks like they pose no challenge, even with their bulky health, but fighting them can be a chore if you overlook their approach. Finding the right angles to attack them from can save you a whole lot of trouble. However, the real difficulty of this game comes from the bosses. Every single one of them is a pattern festival, meaning you'll need to observe what they do in order to find the best time to spam your attacks. Overall, From the Abyss is a very short adventure with controls that are kinda clunky on purpose to enhance its difficulty. Definitely an acquired taste for hardcore players. Number 9. Demon Gaze. This is one of those dungeon crawlers in first-person view, one very colorful with over-the-top fan service. You create a bunch of characters based on their classes, and there you go into another quest-driven adventure. However, it is also heavily story-based as it has a lot of dialogue and character development, but honestly, it's just a funny comedy. Its turn-based battle mechanics are quite easy to understand. They revolve around you choosing your actions during your turns and executing them. It's the type of dungeons, the type of monsters, and the type of character class that determines everything. Grinding is a big part of it thanks to this, as you won't be able to exploit the system without gaining a few levels first. Exploration can be a labyrinth, but that's usually the case on these types of games. So all in all, Demon Gaze is a fun game, but only if you're really into challenging dungeon crawlers. Number 8. Exile. This is one very obscure action RPG from a very obscure series. Available also for the Sega Genesis, equally hard by the way. It's an unforgiving bastard that plays like a side-scroller with platforming elements in 2D hack-and-slash action. Exploration in towns takes place in a top-down view perspective. Usually you talk to everybody to discover clues on where to go next. You also find party members that will only be there for story purposes. I mean, they never do anything to aid you in battle since the main character does all the fighting. Regardless, I thought it was a decent addition to give more emphasis to its short story. Exile is a grind fest while you'll be farming enemies to obtain experience and level up. Traversing through its dungeons and platforms is a huge pain in the ass, mainly because of the stupid monsters respawning all the time. But its fast-paced action combat makes up for most of these annoyances. This is a hidden gem in both systems and a game that you should play if you wanna go crazy. Number 7. Brigantine, The Legend of Ursena. A very niche strategy RPG that's extremely difficult, convoluted and hard to get into. You select one character and their army to embark on a journey of conquest and liberation. The truth is, even if the story is well written, offering a very interesting premise, the game just throws you in. So learning the basics is a trial and error adventure. It involves heavy micromanagement since most of your playable characters will be a couple of heroes and their armies of monsters. Obviously this is the true core of the game, so if you're so hardcore but don't like micromanagement, forget about it. Let's say this game is Ogre Battle meets Master of Monsters, two rather obscure titles too, now that I think about it. Once you're done with menus and administration and whatever, it's time to do battle in these long maps with tons of enemies. This is where your tactical knowledge must come in, as the best way to deal with them is to lure them. But they keep moving with each turn, so eventually you'll be overwhelmed! Brigantine is one of the hardest JRPGs to get into of this list, but since you're one badass motherfucker, you'll be fine. Number 6. Zettai Hero Project on Losing Ranger vs Dark Death Evil Man. Yeah, this game is a total joke, so don't pay much attention to the story as you'll be laughing or cringing the entire time. Meet one of the hardest roguelike RPGs you'll ever play. Yep, it's one of those where dungeons are randomly generated and if you die, you go back to level 1. Well, you still do that even if you beat the dungeon. But you retain your items, which is the key to beating this ridiculously tough game. And yep, it's also one of those where the enemies move if you move, all these in grid-based areas. Traps will be there and sometimes there won't be a way not to get damaged, then it's time to face the bosses and their minions. Strategizing in order to beat them first or get to the boss before will also play a major role. In conclusion, it's a roguelike, plain and simple, with some Disgaea influence here and there. The majority of the games of this subgenre are for hardcore players anyway, so try it if you dare. Number 5. Operation Darkness. Oh boy, here we go again with this game. An exclusive on the Xbox 360, sadly, but only for the hardcore gamer. Takes place during World War II, but with dark fantasy elements involved, such as vampires and zombies. Battles here are very long, taking you up from 45 minutes to an hour and a half each. You'll control often around 10 characters per mission, each with their own unique skills and proficiencies. Most of them can equip all kinds of artillery, and you'll need this variety in order to get through the game. Tanks are your worst nightmare not because of the fact that only bazookas can destroy them. It's because they have a long ass range and can hit you from afar while driving away from you. Reaching them, therefore, is a pain in the ass. All these meanwhile endless enemies with strong AI shatter your soldiers to pieces. This is a good game, don't take me wrong, kind of underrated, but it can be pretty unbalanced and unfair at times. If we add the fact that you have permadeath with even some of the story characters, this strategy RPG becomes a total nightmare. Good luck with this asshole! Number 4. Generation of Chaos, Pandoras Reflection. Remember all those old Idea Factory games, mostly developed by Neverland? Spectral Souls is a grindfest, Blazing Souls is a grindfest, and they're relentlessly hard. So there you go, 2 more JRPGs for hardcore players like you. Anyway, Pandoras Reflection offers a much different challenge. It's a real-time strategy RPG where you have to direct your characters towards certain points of the maps you'll play. Bases, enemies, or bosses. Encountering these last 2 takes you up to a battle screen where you'll need to click the buttons at the right time to make your attacks work properly. And of course, some are strong against others, but also the other way around. And of course, tactical knowledge and patience are required since you have to be paying attention at everything that goes on. And of course, it has a steep learning curve. You will be rewarded with beautiful artwork, atmospheric music, and a surprisingly dark and interesting universe. Plus, if you get into the battle mechanics, I guarantee a hardcore addiction. I love this game, but it's too bad it didn't get a physical release outside Japan. Number 3. Tokyo Xanadu. Also available on the PS Vita, this action RPG comes from Falcom, and it takes us into a high school student simulator. Long game, long story, too much dialogue. In other words, one of those with visual novel elements. But you're here for the action, eh? Let's get into that then. Tokyo Xanadu acts like a dungeon crawler where you'll be traversing through several different areas filled with monsters. Each and every one of them has elemental strengths and weaknesses, just like your characters. So attacking them with the correct party member, which you can switch to at any given time, spells victory. That is only if you manage to survive. Well, there is an easy mode of course, but even on it, this game can put you through hell! Don't underestimate Tokyo Xanadu, as it is a very hard title that can be very challenging. Switching to another character at the right time, learning the boss patterns, and knowing how or when to strike can be a total drag sometimes. And it's one of those where the more you advance, the more frustrating it becomes. But this will be a walk in the park for you since you're so damn hardcore, right? Yeah, it will. Number 2. Baten Kitos Origins. This is a prequel to Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean, a fantastic and criminally underrated RPG also on the GameCube. That one is hard too, but I always found it quite balanced. Origins, however, is a totally different story. It may feel that way at first and during some missions or boss battles, but trust me, it's not. Some of them will be infuriating and will piss on your grave once you're fucking dead! It's a turn-based RPG that relies on choosing the right cards, each with an attack, an armor for defense, a special skill, a healing item, etc. You can also create combos with these cards, which makes it even cooler. Did you notice the timer that goes on where the cards are? That's one of the most stressful features of this game, because it psychologically forces you to choose your cards faster. And yes, you will mess up quite frequently, so with some bosses, this error might cost you everything. Baten Kitos Origins is a great game, it just has some brutal difficulty spikes and one of the hardest boss battles ever created. Fuck. Number 1. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner Soul Hackers. Since it's a Megami Tensei game, you might think it's not that obscure, and you're right. But it got overshadowed by a bunch of other RPGs on the system, including other titles in the SMT franchise. Soul Hackers is a remake of the second game of the Devil Summoner series. Originally released for the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation, only in Japan! Well, thank goodness this version came out everywhere in the world, so everybody could play it. Well, everybody can try it, that's what I meant, cause only a few select will be able to pull through its unnerving difficulty. It's a dungeon crawler in first person with some really long maps, full of traps, dead ends, and miserable puzzles. Random encounters are there, so the navigation will always be a pain in your hardcore ass. You can have up to 6 characters per battle, 2 being the silent protagonist and the sexy Nemisa, while the others are demons, as usual in this series. If, however, the main character dies, it's game over. So yep, you'll be dying over and over and over in this game. Soul Hackers has an amazing science fiction setting combined with virtual reality, a great adult story, and an interesting cast of characters. Criminally underrated soundtrack too, so everything in this game makes it worth your time on these godforsaken labyrinths. Plus, it's a Shin Megami Tensei, you know all of those are hard no matter what. Don't tell me you want more. Don't tell me that, because it ain't gonna happen, man. It's not gonna happen. More? Jesus, come on, like 30 isn't enough? Plus all those mainstream hardcore games that you already know about? Come on. Come on. No. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Get out of here. Thanks for watching. Go on. Turn off the video. And don't forget to subscribe.